Been a while. Can I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet? Pay my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and commit on behalf of my government to the implementation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Friends, what a privilege it is to gather in this room, one which we should cherish, one which we should never take for granted. I've been in this building now for 26 years. I've had 6 at this end of the corridor. I don't intend going back. I don't intend going back. We asked Australians to vote for change, and they did that. And when you do change the government, you do change the country. And we made history. Seems like a long time ago, I've got to say, May 21, but just a bit over a week ago. We have formed government from opposition 4 times since the Second World War. That story is pretty familiar. Heroes up there, Bob Hawke, Gough Whitlam and Kevin Rudd. The truth is, though, that if you go back a bit further, we have formed government 5 times since the First World War, 5 times in a century of our great party with over 130 years of proud history. Australians have placed their trust in us, and that brings with it an enormous responsibility to deliver on the commitments that we made, the commitments for which we have a clear mandate as part of a majority Labor government. And deliver we will. More secure work, taking pressure off the cost of living, cheaper childcare. We will strengthen Medicare. We will fix aged care. We will make sure that we make more things here in Australia and become a more resilient economy with advanced manufacturing. We will end the climate wars. We will introduce legislation for an anti-corruption commission this year. We will show that we're an inclusive and mature country by recognising the privilege that we have of sharing this great island continent of ours, this great multicultural nation, with the oldest continuous civilisation on the planet, and recognising that in our Constitution with an enshrined voice to Parliament. And you might have noticed that the world has noticed that the government has changed. We're already in both our region in terms of Penny's very successful visit to Fiji. But at the Quad Leaders meeting with our most important ally, President Biden of the United States, but also our important friends in Prime Minister Kishida from Japan and Prime Minister Modi in India, we changed the statement that was made, and they very much welcomed our changed position on climate change. We're joining again the global effort which we needed to do after 9 wasted years. And waste is what I want to talk about in 2 areas. I want to remind you that you shouldn't waste a day in government. we don't intend to. You might have noticed we got on with things pretty quickly and were sworn in quicker than any government has been in Australia's history. But we'll also get rid of the waste and the rorts, and Jim and Katie have already been working on that, and we will produce a budget in October of this year. We've already met with Treasury and finance officials to get that work underway. One of the reasons why we're here in this room rather than the other room is that we showed discipline, we showed unity, we showed a sense of purpose. And I do want to thank, as the leader, the support people in this room for the support that you gave over the last 3 years. Getting from opposition to government is tough. Sometimes the Labor Party looks at ourselves rather than looks outward. We looked outward for the 3 years. I keep saying to some of the Fourth Estate that I outlined what we would do, what the plan was at the National Press Club in 2019. Not a normal thing for a leader of a political party to do. But we outlined clearly the strategy, which was about putting in place the review and learning the lessons, making sure that we then developed a vision statement outlining what our values were and working that through, working through a platform with the entire Labor movement. And I want to acknowledge the contribution of the trade union movement to bringing us into this government. But the last element of that four-part strategy was, of course, policy. And we put forward those coherent policies which tell a story at this election. It wasn't a small strategy. It was a smart strategy. It was one that is achievable, and it was one that is fashioned on, as I said, continually, in my corniest of analogies, that we would kick with the wind at our back in the fourth quarter. And wasn't that wind magnificent? But I also spoke as the election approached as well. I didn't put it this way, but I'll start now and you'll get used to hearing it. I spoke about back-to-back premierships. I spoke about 2 elections. I said I had 2 dates in mind. One, election date of May 21, but secondly as well, where we would be positioned in 2025 to be able to say, we said we would do the following measures: cheaper childcare, ending the climate wars, anti-corruption commission, more secure work, lifting wages, taking pressure off the cost of living, affordable housing measures, fee-free TAFE, all the measures that we put in place, and that we would be able to point to that in 2025. Because the way that you really change the country, is to entrench reforms. And to do that, you need a long-term Labor government. It's only Labor that does the big things in this country. And I want, just as universal health care and universal superannuation are part of the great Australian story created by Labor, I want universal childcare to be part of the great Australian story. I want the economic transformation that dealing with clean energy and creating those high-value jobs powered by cheaper, cleaner energy will do to be part of the great Australian story as well. I want part of the Australian story to be dealing with the national security challenges that we have in our region that we've set about making a difference on. And I believe we can do that if we maintain the sort of discipline that we have shown over the last 3 years, both members of the caucus and the fantastic candidates who I see before me here today. And I do want to congratulate each and every one and ask them to stand up. Jerome, Marion, one by one, Sam, Michelle, Gordon. Up we go. Up we go. Come Dan. Andrew. Alison. Up we go. Tanya. Sam. Verena. So just as we do that, I also acknowledge two fallen colleagues, Christina and Terry, and thank them for their contribution. But I make this point, that thanks to my good friend Fiona, sitting up the back there, quietly. Fiona ran a magnificent campaign. If she gets across the line, no one's allowed to call her Fiona anymore. We'll just call her 77. But it was a magnificent campaign by people. Fair to say, to use a footy analogy, the umpires didn't really, go with us all the time. I say in front of some of those umpires here today. But we dealt with that. And maybe they don't have as much influence as they think, because we refused to go off track. We had a good story to tell. We weren't intimidated by anyone. We didn't get distracted. We stayed on course, and the discipline that we showed was magnificent. Planning is the first step. Faith is the second. And solidarity is the third. They are the three things that I want to define this caucus, this parliament. Because in the last parliament, even when we were making calls that were, difficult, I think we got the big calls right. And I thank you for backing in those big calls. One of the calls we made, which I want to acknowledge as well, Paul Erickson, our magnificent campaign director. Now, this room doesn't leak, of course. So, one of the things that Paul wouldn't mind knowing, of course, was when I said I got this idea. It was about a year ago. Got this idea that we're going to launch the campaign in Western Australia. Not everyone thought that was a great idea at the beginning. It's got to be said. Not everyone was rapt. It was probably the weakest reception since I was the Cabinet Minister said we're going to bring 565 mayors to Canberra and you're going to meet with all of them. But wasn't that a good call in WA? So we have an opportunity to shape the future from this position. We know the policies that we have in place, but I said on election night as well, the how is important. I'm serious about the how. We need to change the way that politics operates in this country. We need to be more inclusive. We need to be prepared to reach out. We need to be prepared to engage on those issues. We can do that in this parliament. The truth is, while we had two losses of valued colleagues, we didn't lose a single seat to the coalition, which is quite extraordinary in a federal campaign like that. I wasn't sure during the campaign, some of the sort of journalists who were talking to us, and you don't like telling them everything, but they were like, I think 6 visits to Parramatta? 7? I was sort of saying to them, I reckon we're going to win Bennelong, so I'm not really worried about Parramatta. during the campaign. I'm not quite sure what was going on with some of the strategy against us. But we can't control that. What we can control is ourselves. We can control the way that we handle ourselves, the way that we conduct ourselves as a government. We can stand tall, we can reach out to people, and I intend to do that. The Employment Summit, we've already had some discussions about bringing people together. I'm serious about bringing unions and businesses together for their common purpose, for their common interest, to create jobs, to lift productivity, to lift wages and lift profits. I'm serious about reaching out, as I always have been, to local government and people through regional development. I'm serious about reaching out to small business and working on ways in which we can improve things for small business. I'm serious about reaching out to multicultural communities, to people of faith, to ensuring that people, regardless of who they are, who they believe in or whether they don't believe at all, whether they, who they love, who they are, reaching out. I think one of the things that we've seen in this country rejected is the idea that government is about sitting down and working out how to wedge people, how to cause division. And we saw that during the election campaign, whereby some very vulnerable people were singled out for adding to their vilification. We're a better country than that. We shouldn't do that, ever, ever. What we should do is seek to reach out and to be an inclusive society, and how we conduct ourselves is very much a part of that. I intend to bring Parliament back in the last week of July, the last Tuesday in July, so you can plan your period between now and then. We will have a range of this Sunday. I will travel to Indonesia, a very important relationship that we have. After I travel to Adelaide, I'll be on Saturday, and I'll be in Perth later on Saturday night, and in Sunday as well, to say thank you to the people who gave us support this time round. My objective is to not keep this room as it is. My objective is to grow this room and to grow a Labor government. I think that we can do it, and if we keep our discipline, implement the program which is there, there is no reason why we can't continue to be even more successful than we have been at this point. But to this point in time, though, remember, keep your feet on the ground, but enjoy the journey. For those newbies, you really struck gold. Yes. Because opposition is not fun at all, at all. So enjoy being part of a government that can make a difference, a government that will implement our policies and programs, a government that will bring people with us on the journey of change. And I thank you for the incredible honour of being a Labor Prime Minister. It's a big deal.
Thank you, colleagues. We're just going to get...
Just a little anecdote. I rang Susan Templeman on Friday, May 20, and said, I just realised I haven't been anywhere near Macquarie during the entire campaign. First point is, apologies for doing that. Might as well see on how many... 3 votes.
But it's a really good bloody sign that I've been nowhere near the
Indeed it is, and thank you so much, Anthony. I can assure you from the reception you have just seen and heard in this room that we are enormously proud to be serving in an Albanese Labor government alongside you. Now this brings us to a next really important part of our caucus. I can't actually see, but is there space for you to walk there when I call out your names? Just so the media are aware, we are going to do the signing of the caucus book now. And
we went full budget on the pen.
Yeah, no holding back in that caucus budget.
Paddy Gallagher was in charge of the pen.
So, colleagues, I've got this enormous honour now to read out the new members. We're going to go in a very, again, an ancient tradition that we follow. The first person to sign the caucus book today is, it's going to be done, in case anybody is curious how this name calling happens. We work from federation seats through to the newest created seat. So that's the order in which you will sign the caucus book. And
we haven't normally done this many.
That's true. And the very flash black pens, as Anthony pointed out, are up there for you to use. So with the class of 22, I really want to get my fellow caucus members involved here. This is a very important welcome ceremony here. The first person from the class of 22 to sign the book is our Senator from Victoria, Jana Stewart.
Flash pen, thanks.
That was the upgraded one. I should have seen the other one.
I'm sure I had a spare one somewhere.
Thank you. Our second person to welcome into class of 2022 is the member for Hunter, Daniel Rapicoli. I make no jokes at all about this kind of a man, but I don't know how you're going to do
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next federation seat is the seat of Parramatta, now held by Andrew Charlton. And our next federation seat is the seat of Robertson, held by Dr. Gordon Rick. The 1901 seat of Swan, now held by Zanita Mascaranos.
Sorry, I have a very long surname.
I know the problem.
Thank you. Rapidly moving to the 1903 created seat of Boothby to Louise Miller-Frost. Sally. Smile.
Thank you.
And the 1922 seat of Reid, now held by Sally Situ.
A good neighbour.
Cracking on to 1949 seats, we start with the seat of Bennelong, now held by Jerome Laxell. We don't get to say that one too often in this room. Okay, the next 1949 seat at Chisholm, now held by Karina Darling.
Anyone not from New South Wales is now a South supporter, including Karina.
Apparently. Not just saying yes. Yes. Oh, no buddies.
Thank you. Our next 1949 seat of Cunningham, now held by Alison All right. And the seat of Higgins, now held by Michelle. A 1969 seat of Holt, now held by Cassandra Fernando.
Sorry, I have a very long signature.
Gee, that's nice.
A 1974 seat of Tacky, now held
long without
by Sam Lynn.
Thank you. Well done.
Go, Sam!
It's a great thing. Thank you.
A 1990 seat of Pierce, now held by Tracy Roberts.
That was in the column.
They won't. Don't show.
And our 2001 seat, Hasluck.
They need one non-talking.
Hold that thought. Okay, our 2001 seat of Hasluck, now held by Tanya Lawrence.
Thank you.
Our 2001 seat of Lingiari, Marion Scrimgeour.
Great work.
Our 2019 seat of Spence goes now to Matt Burnell.
Good on you, mate. Thanks very much.
And our very last newly created seat of 2022 goes to none other than Sam Ray. And that, colleagues, I present to you the class of 2022. What an awesome crew. So I'm now going to ask the media to clear the room. And indeed all non-caucus members to clear the room. We've loved having you. But we've got some work to do.